Hey everybody, Professor Smith here again. Wanted to talk this morning, or I guess whenever you're watching this, better yet, but for me it's the morning. Um, I wanted to talk this morning about our research journals. It's something that you are going to be working on over the next 8 weeks as you work through this next research project, Project 2. For those of you who are looking for more of a clarification on what's happening in Project 2, don't worry, I'm going to be talking about that in a little bit more depth next week. Um, I've given you a general overview in the video that I posted last night. And through that, we can kind of get an understanding of what we're doing this week. I really wanted to focus this week more on exploring our options for papers, ideas about COVID and public health and science and all the things we might have heard. So I wanted to focus more in a very general sense. I wanted to generate ideas. I wonder where that I heard that before. I wanted to generate ideas so that as I start to talk in more concrete depth next week about Project 2, that you already have an understanding of what you're going to do, so it makes a lot more sense because there's a deeper connection between what I'm saying and what you're doing, rather than me saying stuff and then you going out and be like, I wonder what I'm going to do. So we're figuring out this week. So your research journals. Each week I will be posting a new journal entry. So this document, which I've already posted on Blackboard, this document is a general overview of when they're due, how much they're worth, how to do them, when to do them, and each week I'll be posting a new journal entry. I've already posted journal entry 1 for this week, and next week there'll be number 2, and so on and so forth. The journal entries have a little bit of depth to them, so I didn't want this to be a 10, 15 page document. So each week I'll post something new, so make sure to check back for that. So, what are your journals? Your journals are a very personal reflection on what you've chosen to do for your research project, why you've chosen to do it, how you've gone about doing it, what you got from it, and what you can do differently moving forward with your next research project. So, I mean, like the name suggests with journal, it should have I and me and really be I did this and then I did this and I was thinking about this, but I chose not to do that because it didn't seem like a great idea. I'm really nervous about blank, or I'm going to be able to make this strong argument because I found this really great source, so on and so forth. It'll make more sense as you begin to see what you're writing about. And we will talk about Journal 1 in just a few minutes as I get through this, general overview. All right, so you could read this. I went over that general overview. So I want to more specifically talk and read each how-to and then explain that. Each week I will have a video and a prompt for your journal entry. I will send emails when information is posted to your Blackboard. So pretty much like I'm doing this week. You'll have one for week 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. Your journal should be saved as one document titled Journal with Your Name. For each entry, just open the single document and add to it. When done, save it. When the next entry rolls around, just open up the document, type the journal entry number, and then get to writing. So page 1 will probably be week 1, and depending on how much you write for week 1, you may even be able to fit some of week 2 onto page 1. So think of your journal as like a notebook, and you're writing in that same notebook each week. If you'd like to format it a certain way where each page is a different week, I'm fine with that, but still, I don't want you submitting and sending 8, 9 different documents. It all needs to be one single document that you're going to be sending. So as I was saying, you will submit a single document when you're done, just the journals. Please, please, please try and do one entry per week. I get it if you fall behind for 1 week and need to catch up. But if you're going to do all your entries in a single week, so all 8 of your entries in a single week, it's going to be really easy for me to tell because you'll be very general and rushing, and it'll be short, and you really won't be saying very much of anything. Um, this is a really easy grade if you just put some energy and effort into it, and I would imagine that most journal entries will take you somewhere between like 20 minutes to 45 minutes. The longer ones will actually make a lot of sense and be helpful for your papers. Like when I ask you to do an outline or an annotation, those might take you a little bit longer. But I hope that you'll, as we get to that I could justify and explain to you why we're doing these things, why spending more time up front actually helps you save time in the back end from revising. So, a general overview of these journal entries. Entry 1, generating ideas. Entry 2, picking a subject and developing a research question. 3, finding sources to use. 4, working thesis statement. 5, outline paper, so on and so forth. So again, each week I will have a full prompt. Each week I'll have a video explaining what I'd like you to do. So with that, let's transition to Journal 1, Journal Entry 1, generating ideas. So, for your project, I've given you a general overview. Your topic must be something regarding our current public health. COVID, Corona, something along those lines in any capacity, as long as it fits under that sort of umbrella. So, considering you can do almost anything, what do you do when you can do almost anything? You have so many options for research that it can seem overwhelming, and typically is for students when we approach this type of project. And typically I come across two types. Typically I come across two types of students. There it is. Two types of students. Ones that have been thinking about COVID in some aspect of work or school or health, and the second you hear research project about COVID, you're like, oh, boom, bang, I know what I want to do. That group is usually few and far between. The other group is those who are like, research project about COVID? What? I can do almost anything? Well, I don't know what to do. If you're in that camp, which I would imagine most of you are, that's totally fine. That's a very, very normal place for you to be. Don't be ashamed, and don't think that you are a bad thinker or a bad writer because of it, because you are very much not. We are in the generating ideas phase of research, as we were with our first paper, but for this paper, you're going to need to do a little bit more work. So what would I like you to do for this week for your paper, and what would I like you to journal? I would like for you to generate ideas. How do I do that? You can watch or read the news, and when I say watch or read the news, I'm not talking about mainstream media as in like CNN or Fox News or the New York Times. If you know a source that you like on YouTube or on another network or a podcast or an indie magazine, read those. That's news as well. So you can scroll through your social media feed. You can talk to people, and when I say talk to people, not ask them what they're watching on TV, but ask them, how are things going? What do you have to say about COVID, or do you wear masks, or prompting some sort of dialogue that's going to lead to a discussion about what you need, right? If you're just having a random conversation about video games or the best type of teas to drink in the morning, then you probably won't get much. Watch TV. South Park fans, watch that. They just did a hour-long special. I haven't seen it yet. I'm looking forward to it. But you can watch that, and it doesn't even necessarily need to be a COVID special or a COVID documentary, but a show that it comes up or it's discussed, or even just something similar is discussed, like in a movie. Like that movie Contagion or Pandemic or any of those other movies that showcase kind of like COVID, but a much scarier version of it. Not to say that COVID isn't scary, but watch that Dustin Hoffman movie and like, oh my God, how those people... All right, never mind. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Do a Google search for general info. Watch YouTube. Look at the CDC or WHO website. WHO is World Health Organization. Who is the World Health Organization? Excuse me. Sorry. So for the actual journal entry, what should you be doing? You should be writing about your own journey. What were you thinking about and why? What might you do? Consider this as a free writing exercise, so it could be short paragraphs or one really crazy long one or two crazy long ones. But your entry should probably start off. I didn't. Maybe something like, I didn't really know where to start for this project, so I turned on the news and flipped around from a few news channels for about an hour, seeing what they said about COVID, period. Right? Again, like, I want you to be talking about what you've done. And the reason I want you to do that is I want you to be cognizant, to be aware, to reflect upon what you're doing, to not just do it, but to think about it and write about it after the fact. Helps to create these longer lasting memories and muscle memory that's going to allow you to approach research in this way the next time a professor says to you, you have a 10-page paper and here's the topic, but you have to do the rest. So I do want it to be very general. I do want it to be very straightforward. Don't feel like you're being silly. It's about you thinking about this project and what you've done and thinking about how research works and what you can learn, how you can do it better in the future. So what should you write? Write, as I said, right, I mentioned this, but I'll read it real quick. Write about what you searched, how you searched it, and what you found. Write about things that interest you and tell me why. Write about what you might focus on based on your interests. Write about what you do not want to do. Finding out what you don't want to do is a great way to figure out what you do want to do. It's sort of like making a list of 5 things that you might be interested in, and then thinking about those 5 things, and then knowing you can only choose one, and then thinking about it and crossing out the 4 that are the worst. Like, it's a good idea while generating ideas to not say, oh, I want to do this in masks, but to say, I want to do this in masks, and maybe I want to do this as well, or maybe I want to do this and this. And by doing a little bit more research about this and writing about it and thinking about it, rather than picking the first thing that comes to your mind, you'll be able to pick what you think will make for a better paper, what you're more interested in, and what you genuinely think you'll be able to research and write about in a cohesive and interesting way, right? So this journal entry, and again, each journal entry will have its own little rubric of how you should write it. This one should be roughly 500 words, give or take. I'm not going to count every single word, but if I can clearly see, which it's pretty obvious, that 250 words looks a lot different than 500 words. So if I'm seeing that you're only doing half the work, I'll give you half the grade. But if you wrote a strong 400, a strong 450, you're no harm, no foul. I'm putting the 500 more as a let's try and get close to that mark. But if you really feel like you've said what you had to say and like you don't want to just repeat yourself, but considering what I'm asking you to do, and you should be able to produce at least 400 words. It's really not that many. You could write a few big paragraphs, or you could write a bunch of shorter ones, or mix, but I'd like for you to try and break up your ideas even a little bit. I'm not expecting you to follow that the academic body paragraph structure of doing those 5 or 7 things, depending on which document you liked better. But to at least try and break up your ideas. Makes it a little bit easier for me to read when I have to read these. Write using I and me and the like. So again, it's very, very personal. It's straightforward. It's matter of fact. And the main purpose is, again, for you to reflect on how and why and what ideas you've generated. The purpose, let me not say the purpose. I've already explained the purpose. So the outcome. What would I like for you to have now that you've done this, now that you've written this journal, now that you've gone through the generating of ideas process? Well, I would like for you to be able to, in a sentence or two, sit down with somebody, especially me, and say, Professor, My paper is on COVID and sharing of public spaces. My paper is on COVID and uh, kids going to school. My paper is on COVID and whether smoking increases your chances. My paper is on COVID and the going back to work and working remotely, right? So it's a matter of saying, like, my paper is about here's my topic and here's my subject. That's all I need from you by the end of this week or even a little bit early into next week. Next week, next journal entry, this is when we're going to start working from that paper about COVID and masks to develop that into our question, our thesis statement, right? So we had our topic, our subject, and what we're going to talk about. The only way for us to get a thesis statement is to develop a research question. And let me not get into that too much, but because I'm going to have a whole thing on it with PowerPoint and documents and a video next week. But you cannot start, or, well, let me not say you can't, because, right, phase one is starting. You cannot complete, you cannot write, you cannot even research a good or strong research paper unless you have developed a really strong, a really clear, and a really concise research question. Research starts from there. Well, I guess it starts from generating ideas, but like the actual research that you're going to do in the writing starts with that question. The generating ideas helps us get to that question. But again, we'll talk about that next week. I don't want to overload you. So please start getting on Journal 1. Please start getting on your idea generation. And good luck. Let's get on this. If you got any questions, you guys and gals know how to get hold of me. If I miss your email, please just email me a second time a day later. It's not because I'm not checking, but sometimes one of them gets mixed up with other things and it's hard to find. So I'm not ignoring you. Please just reach out again. So everybody, have a great rest of your Saturday, your weekend, and probably no video tomorrow, but a video again Monday. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. All right, everybody. Bye.